Alright, so today we're going to be building a mid-range computer. It's going to be incredibly fast at word processing, internet browsing, all the basic tasks. Be able to watch high-definition movies and all that stuff on it. Not so much gaming at the moment, or maybe video editing, but it's going to actually have the capability to be upgraded tremendously for more graphics power, more storage, and more performance for whatever may need to be done down the road. So, let's go over the part list. We have the NZXT Source 210 case. I like the color, the two-tone color on it. I'll show you the front of the case later on in the video. Inside the case, I've already installed a Corsair CX430W 430 watt power supply. For the motherboard, we're going to be using the Asus M5A97LE-R2. That motherboard, you can get the M5A97 without the LE. There's a couple advantages there, but in this case I was able to pick up this board for a lot less, and really you're not losing any performance. There's just, you're losing a heatsink and USB 3.0 connectivity for the front panel, which for this case we did not need anyways. For the processor, we're going to be using an AMD FX 4130, 3.8 gigahertz quad-core processor. Again, there's more powerful processors out there, there's less powerful processors out there. It's a good mid-grade one, and we can always upgrade it later. For RAM, we're going to be using 4 gigabytes of G.Skill Ripjaw X series. Again, 4 gigs, easily we can upgrade that later. For speed, for load times and general speed, we're going to be using a solid-state drive, 120 gigabyte Kingston SSD now. We also have the SSD mounting bracket for that. Please make sure you get a mounting bracket, or make sure your case has a mounting location for an SSD. We're going to be using a 1 terabyte Western Digital green drive. And then we picked up a DVD burner, CD reader, you know, for the rare cases you need to use one of those. And for the graphics card, for now we just are starting off with the Radeon HD 5450. Again, we're not going to be doing any heavy gaming on this, but we just want enough graphics power to be able to watch high-definition videos and maybe play some light games. And also, this motherboard does not have built-in video, so we have to have an external video card. I've also picked up an extra case fan for the case just to help with cooling. And we'll also be installing Windows 7 on this machine. Total cost of the machine is $550, and that includes the operating system. So let's go ahead and get to work. Alright, so the first thing we're going to be doing is pulling the motherboard out of its box. So we'll go ahead and open up the motherboard. Pull the motherboard out. Let's see what kind of cables and stuff we can get here. Owner's manual. The rear plate for the case. And then go ahead and close the motherboard box once you get everything out of it. We're going to use this as our working table. Alright, let's go ahead and pull out the motherboard. Let's see what else we got in here. I think they gave us a couple cables. Yes. A couple cables for SATA cables for the hard drive. So put that in there with our other cables for when we get ready to install into the case. Alright, go ahead and grab our AMD processor. So there's the processor, there's manual, put that out of the way. Go ahead and prepare the motherboard for the processor. So what we're going to do here is lift up on the bracket to the motherboard. and then we're going to install the CPU in there. Alright, first thing you do, match up the arrow on the CPU, see a little gold arrow, and match that up to the arrow that is on the CPU socket as well as the motherboard, and you just let it drop in there gently. Do not use any force whatsoever when you're installing a CPU. Once you make sure that all 4 sides are in there, go ahead and lower the mount or the secure bracket. Alright, so before you install the CPU cooler, you want to go ahead and get an alcohol wipe. And make sure the CPU is cleaned off. When I installed this, I did touch it a little bit, and so it's best just to make sure that the surface is as clean as possible before you apply the cooling to it. So go ahead and just wipe that down, make sure it is clean. There we go. And that's just going to make sure that your heatsink has a proper connection to the CPU. Have a thermal paste. Alright, now if you're using the stock cooler, it's going to have thermal paste already applied to it, which is nice. And we're going to go ahead and mount this on the board. Keep in mind your power cable. Make sure you have room once you mount it to actually reach the power plug on the motherboard. So it looks like we're going to mount it in like this. So we're just checking to make sure everything's going to align. Then you just line it up, rest it onto the CPU, place the hook on the one side, and place the hook on the other side. You will have to apply a little bit of force, it'll snap in, and then there's a lever on the one side of the heatsink that you just pivot around 180 degrees, and that will pull it in nice and tight. So now our heatsink is installed, and we can plug it in over here. On your motherboard, you'll have several different sockets, and here you have one labeled CPU fan. So we'll go ahead and plug this into the CPU fan slot. Make sure your wires are not resting on any of the brass parts of the heatsink. You don't want a wire melting. So we'll go ahead and make sure those wires are running across the plastic. It's good to go. Alright, so now we have the CPU installed. Let's go ahead and get a close look at the motherboard. And so now you can see here a little bit better the CPU, or the fan cooler mounted on the motherboard. We're going to go ahead and mount the RAM. So go ahead and get your memory. Open it up. And you're going to pull out your 2 RAM chips. Keep the little sticker if you want it. Now, when you're installing 2 memory chips into a motherboard that has 4 ports, you definitely want to refer to the motherboard to confirm which slots you're installing into. So here on this motherboard on page 1-9, it's telling you the different ways to install your memory depending on how many sticks you have. So in this recommendation, it says if you have 2 sticks, you want to use DIMM slot A2 and B2. So it's always critical to make sure you do that. So we're going to find the slot A2, and that would be that one, and B2. So in this case, it's the 2 blue sockets, which is nice because our RAM is blue, and that's why I got these, just so you have a little matching color scheme. Go ahead and install the RAM, slide it in, make sure your pins are lined up. Push down on each corner, and it will snap into place. Make sure your clips are all the way in, and then go ahead and press in the second card. There you go. So now you have your 2 sticks. If you want to add more later, simply we'll add it into the other 2 slots. So now our CPU and RAM is installed. Now let's get it mounted into the case. Alright, now we have the case turned onto its side. First thing we need to do is to install the back plate onto the case. Do not install your motherboard before you put the back plate on, otherwise you'll have to take it all back apart again. This is what a back plate will look like. It'll come with your motherboard. And you're going to install it on the inside, facing out. Make sure you put it on the right way. It'll go in both ways, so make sure your components are lined up. So we're going to want it going in this way so the ports on the motherboard line up properly. Just snaps into place. And that's it for the backplate. Now we're going to go ahead and install the motherboard. Before we do that, we just want to make sure we have all of our cables moved out of the way. If you've seen my how not to build a computer video, then at this point you've seen the next step, which is where you just take the motherboard and you screw it down to the bottom of the case. If you do that, turn it on your computer, you can destroy your computer. In your case will be a bag of all sorts of good little hardware. You want to open that bag and pull out all the little screws and stuff that they give you. And you'll find one of the bags will have little riser screws that you need to install into the bottom of the case. So motherboard moved around here the right way. What I'm going to do is just eye up the holes on the motherboard and kind of look to see where the corresponding hole is on the case. So it's going to look like we're going to have a screw that's going to go there. A couple of these could be a little bit tighter, so I'm just going to get a pair of pliers and just make sure they are tightened in there all the way. Alright, now that we have those in there, we're going to go ahead and set our motherboard. Alright, you may need to adjust the back plate a little bit. I have to push up some of the little metal pieces just so that you can slide everything in there. So that should be good. Oh, got more slide up here. You got little metal clamps that you just have to slide up. Go ahead and carefully slide it over. You don't want to grind the bottom of the motherboard. And you just slide it over till your screw holes line up. And then go ahead and grab our motherboard screws out of our case hardware. And we'll go ahead and get at least one of the screws secured. Make sure everything's lined up good, which looks like it is. And if you had to run any cables behind your motherboard, you want to make sure you do that as well. But I think we're going to be good here. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the rest of the screws. Alright, we got all the screws secured. Now we can go ahead and mount in our PCI cards, which in this case all we have is the video card. Driver installation ID, which we will not be using because we will use the most recent drivers from the website, another sticker, owner's manual, all that good stuff, and the video card. Here's our card. And we're going to just kind of pre-line it up, see which port or which back plate we have to take off. It's going to be the second one right here. So we'll grab our screwdriver and go ahead and take out that second back plate. And we'll go ahead and install the PCI card, the video card. Line it up, make sure all your slots are lined up, and then just press it down in. Make sure it's in all the way. Alright, and then we'll go ahead and put the screw back in. Alright, so now we have the motherboard installed, the CPU installed, the RAM installed. The video card installed, the motherboard is mounted, and the power supply was already installed. Alright, so now we're going to mount our drives, the extra fan that we have, and CD drive. And so to do that, first we're going to need to take off the back of the case. So there's just 2 screws on the back of the case, which we will take out. Remove the back panel, put it in a safe place where it's not going to get scratched. Now that we can get through the case on both sides, we're going to go ahead and pull off the front panel. Now some cases are easier than others. This one, a little bit trickier than others. You have to squeeze in to release. Squeeze in. And then as you squeeze it in, you just want to pull gently until it begins to come out. Alright, so we got that side. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Alright, now we have the front panel off. So we're going to go ahead, pull that off gently. There are some wires attached in there, so don't go yanking it off too hard. Just loosen up some of the cables here so we can get a little slack. Alright, so now here's what we're going to do. The case fan I've ordered for this build is 140 millimeter. This particular case only supports 140 millimeters at the top. Currently it has a 120 millimeter fan in the back. So I'm going to move the 120 millimeter fan from the back to the front, so we have some airflow going over the drives and coming into the case from the front, and then venting out of the top. So first thing we're going to do is remove the fan from the back. Just 4 screws that hold it into place. And then you'll go ahead and just gently pull out the fan. I see where these cables are running. Yep, so we're going to go ahead and pull. Now we want to make sure we're pulling air in. So go ahead, we'll be mounting it like this. To the front. And we'll go ahead and put those screws back in. Before we do that, let's just go ahead and figure out how we're going to run our power. I think I'm actually going to pivot it so the cable is running at the back. That way I can route it around the back of the case. So now we have the fan moved to the front. Now let's go ahead and mount the other fan to the top. So we want this fan blowing air out, so we're going to make sure we face it the proper way. Usually the grid or the grill of the fan is where the air is going to blow towards, so we're going to face that upward. And we're going to put it at the back of the case. Alright, now we have the fan mount on the top. Now let's go ahead and run the wiring for the fan. So the one cable I had ran Behind here, I'm actually going to feed back up through the top of the motherboard, hopefully. Did I just get the fan in the way? Oh, I sure did. Okay. Let's take one step back. So I actually need to remove this fan, or at least pivot it, allow it to pivot out, so that I can get the cable through there, which at this time, before I mount the fan as well, I also need to run the CPU power. Alright, so now we're going to run the 4-pin power to the motherboard. So we need to take the 8-pin connector and split it into 2. There we go. So we just need 4 pins for this machine. And figure out the best way to run this up here. Let's see, maybe be able to run it behind the motherboard. Well, let's get as much slack as we can here. Run it behind the motherboard. Alright, so now got that ran through. And we just need to plug in right there. So make sure you plug in the right connector. And we're going to pull down the extra slack there. So now it's all nicely ran behind the motherboard. We're going to do the same thing now with this fan. Before we mount the fan in, we're going to run the fan cable up through here and plug it in to the chassis fan connector at the top. Like so. So now we have our cables nice and neat out of the way. Now we can go ahead and mount the fan into this. Let's go ahead and run the power wire as well for the fan to mount in the front. And we're just going to run this wire through the back case. And we'll feed the power plug up through our we need to take out the fan again because I can't run the other cable with that fan in place. There we go. That should give us enough slack. My goodness. See, these are the joys of building your own computers when you continually forget that what you're trying to do. So pull the connector through the back here. Oh man, it's so much easier if the fan wasn't there, but I am determined to feed this through. There we go. Okay. Now, we'll plug that into the other slot there at the top and run that cable accordingly so that we can slide our fan back over for the third time. Let's install and screw in the fan onto the top. Let's double check our wiring, make sure everything's looking good. Sure CPU wires are running good. Make sure our fan can spin without anything being in its way. Alright, pull out all the extra slack we can here. That's good. Good, that looks good. Awesome. Alright, now we're ready to start mounting in our drives. So first, going to go ahead and open up our solid state drive. Pull out the drive and then grab our adapter plate. So we have our adapter plate. Go ahead and lay the hard drive onto that. Make sure your connectors are pointing out the right way so that you can actually plug the cable into them. Line up your holes on the bottom. There we go. The hard drive plate should come with the mounting hardware that you need. So we're going to go ahead and grab that. Alright, so we got the solid state attached to the adapter. Go ahead and open up our mechanical hard drive. And we got our DVD CD drive. So let's go ahead and get these mounted in. We'll need the mounting hardware for the solid state, and then we also have the mounts for the other drives. So now you just have to figure out position. So let's go ahead and we're going to put the drive, DVD drive, in the top. So the best way to get this in is probably going to be to slide it in from the front. We'll go ahead and get that slid in there. There we go. And we need to go ahead and remove the top plate from the case cover. Alright, now we got the drive slid in. We just need to line up the screw holes. Alright, there we go. And then use the hardware provided by your case to go ahead and screw those in. Alright, 2 screws is usually enough to hold that in. We can also put a screw or 2 on the back side if you want a little extra securement. Alright, so now we need to figure out where we're going to mount our drives. Since we have the fan coming in here through the front, pushing air here, I want to mount the mechanical hard drive right below the fan, and then the solid state right below the mechanical. You can mount it different ways. The reason I'm doing that is because the mechanical is going to generate the most heat. I want that heat to be blown away by the fan, and then the solid state, I'll give it a little bit of room underneath of it, and that way we're not blocking the airflow of the fan getting to the rest of the case. So first thing, slide in our mechanical hard drive. Until it rests right underneath the fan, like so. And then we'll go ahead and slide in the mechanical, or the solid state drive, a couple slots down in the same fashion. Make sure our screw holes line up. Make sure it grabs in all the way. Once you get the screw holes lined up, then go ahead and screw it in. Alright, so now we have everything mounted. Double check that we have everything mounted. We have the motherboard in the case, the power supply, the RAM, CPU, video card, our 2 hard drives, our CD drive, and our case fans. So now we're ready to go ahead and run the wiring. Alright, so now running the case wiring. This can be fun or annoying depending on your preference. I actually enjoy when I get to do the wiring on the case. So we need our cables. I'm going to go grab a couple extra cables. Okay, now we're going to run our cabling. So the motherboard came with 2 SATA cables, which would normally be fine if you had 1 hard drive and a CD drive, but since we have 3 drives, I have a couple extra cables. So let's go ahead and figure out how we are going to route these cables. So our solid state is going to be our primary drive. So I'm going to make sure that is in the SATA 1 slot. I'm actually not 100% sure how much that is. So we're going to plug that into the SATA 1. And then our mechanical drive, I'm going to go ahead and I could plug it into SATA 2. I think I'm actually going to plug it into the SATA 3 port here just to keep things looking symmetrical. There we go. Alright, so the SATA 1 is going to come down here into our solid state drive. And then this cable in SATA 3 is going to come up here to the mechanical drive. So now those two drives are hooked in. Cables are kept out so we still have good airflow. And then I'm going to go ahead and take one of our other cables. Go ahead and use this one here. And we'll run this one, let's say from here. What ports are those? Is that a... Yeah. We'll run it from here. Up into our CD drive. That's all in place. Let's go and untie these other cables we have in here. Alright, now we have all of our front panel connectors, USB connectors, all that good stuff. So we have front panel connectors here. Each front audio and front USB. So let's go ahead and see what we have. Alright, here we go. We'll go ahead and plug our USB. You always know which way to plug the USB because one of the pins is blocked out. So you always plug that into where the pin is blocked out. Again, to make the cable routing a little bit cleaner, I'm going to actually pull these out through here and run them up from the bottom. So I can plug it directly in to the port without the cables being in the way. And then our audio, front port audio is, let's see, 5-pin connector. I believe that's it. Yep, that is it right there. So we're going to do the same thing with this. Pull this cable out. Run it up through the bottom. Again, there's going to be a pin blocked out. And we will plug that in to the front audio. Oh, did we do it? Did we do it? Yes, we do it right. So we pull it all back out. And we run this cable through that same bottom hole. Because we want to keep it looking as clean as possible. Alright, so reset switch, power switch, hard drive LED switch, power negative LED positive. But let me tell you, they've made these plugs so much easier on modern motherboards. I remember doing those on boards and you would pull your hair out, trying to look up the manual, figure out where they go, so that is much nicer. Alright, now we need to run power for all the components. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and run all these cables out the back so we can keep it looking as clean as possible. Alright, so now we have our power running out the back. Oh, if you could only see how beautiful it looks out the back of the case right now. Alright, so we don't need that connector. Don't need that one. We need the motherboard connector. We need the connector for our hard drives and for our CD-ROM. CD-ROM, good lord. DVD burner. Alright, so the power to the motherboard, we'll go ahead and run that through here. I think, right? Or is it higher up? Ah, it's higher up. So we'll run it through up here. Plug that in. So now the board has power. Run our power for our CD-ROM. Set CD-ROM again. What are you gonna do with me? So we'll run that up through here. And then we need to run power down to the two hard drives. Around here. There we go. All those wires are extremely clean and out of the way. As you can see, you can barely see any wires in the way. So that's good for not just cosmetics, but it's good for airflow. So now this fan can blow air cleanly through the case, and it can be pulled up out the top. Now we need to go ahead and pop our front panel back on now that we know we have everything where it needs to be. Just snaps back in. And after snapping that back in, I realized our CD drive actually needs to go forward one slot. Alright, now we have everything mounted. Now we need to go ahead and clean up our wiring mess in the back. Best way to do this is you should get some zip ties either with your case or maybe with the motherboard, but you should end up getting some zip ties when you order the parts. If not, those are definitely the best things to get. So what we want to do is just kind of figure out the best way to wad anything up, any extra wires, any loose wires that we have hanging around. We want to go ahead and group those together. That should give us the flats that we need. Oh yeah, much better. Alright, so that completes my build of this machine. If you'd like a full price list, check the description. It will have a link to my website where you can get more information on the build, as well as links to all the different parts if you'd like to build this yourself or just curious and want to look at the part costs and stuff like that. So, thank you for watching.